just an awesome feeling when suddenly the motor started to sputter on the plane. And my cousin, who was an atheist, looked at me very seriously and said, "We may not make it back." He said, "If we don't make it back, will you forgive me?" That's quite an interesting question for an atheist to ask who's about to die, right? And I said, "Juan, you know, you're flying the plane. You're a good pilot. You haven't crashed anything yet, you know. We're going to make it down, and if we don't, yes, I'll forgive you." Don't worry, which gave him some relief. I was like really amazed. Obviously, we made it back. There was a leak in the fuel line. We damn near didn't make it back. We had to make an emergency landing at a different airport than the one we'd taken off from. It was only after we landed and we got out that I realized I had never experienced a moment of fear during the entire thing. And I never had a fear of death or dying after that. Something happened, something changed. I accepted my own mortality when I was in that plane. I completely accepted the fact that I had no control over the situation, that I could be dead within minutes, that I could die a fiery death within minutes. And yet, upon accepting that fact, accepting my own mortality, I was completely at peace. And I've had to deal with a lot of issues in my life, but fear of dying has never returned. Driver, that he should go commit immoral acts with his mother. And so the bus driver said, "Okay, you don't want to get off the bus, nobody's getting off the bus." I was kidnapped by a bus driver who decided not to stop and let anybody off the bus. Oh, ding, 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 this is where I want to go. Hello, I wound up at Great America. What's up with that? So, definitely somebody else had control of my life and my schedule, and I had to take the damn bus. I don't like taking buses. I don't mind doing it in San Francisco. In fact, I actually prefer it to driving in San Francisco, but here, I don't like taking the damn bus. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Bad girlfriend?
Experience.
Tragedy?
Being open-minded.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
Have a better attitude.
Have a better attitude. But change, it's like, I'm a child of the 60s. I'm older than most of the people in this room. I'll be 65 years old on May 31st. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 65? So I feel honored and privileged to have been a member of that 60s generation. History tells us that the American Civil War ended in April of 1865. My life experience tells me that the American Civil War actually ended in the 1960s, not in the 1860s. There was so much racial unrest and racial reconciliation in the 60s. And so many of these hangovers from the Civil War continued right on. We saw violence. Some of us experienced it. I remember going down to Texas in 1968 seeing signs in stores reinforcing racial segregation. And they were not nice signs. They were rude, very racist signs. I remember going down there to pick up our drummer. She had gone to visit relatives in Texas, and she ran out of money and couldn't get back. She was an African-American woman. We were Mexican and white, and we went down to pick her up. And we're coming back, and we got stopped for going 1 mile over the speed limit outside a little town called Coahoma, Texas. And this was like 1968. Righteously, it was like something right out of the heat of the night, you know. And this big old portly cowboy cop with a 10-gallon hat and a corncob pipe in his mouth comes up to the car and says, "Howdy," and I knew we were cooked. I just knew we were cooked. And he's shining his flashlight around, and Beth is sitting in the front seat with me, and he shines a light in her face, and he shines a light in my face, and he says, "I'll stop y'all because he was going 61 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone, and that's a crime in Texas." He didn't use the word infraction, he used the word crime. And he went on to tell me that since it was Friday night, we had California plates. The only way that they could assure that we would be in court Monday morning was to keep us for the weekend in jail. And I said, "Can I pay the fine now?" And he said, "Y'all trying to bribe me, boy?" Which I said, "The thought never crossed my mind, officer." So, long story short, we went to the judge's house that night. The judge was a woman, and we appeared at her house, and she appeared wearing an apron with chicken feathers and other things on it. And she took the apron off and took us into her parlor and held court and fined us $100 in 1968 for 1 mile over the speed limit. And we didn't have the $100. We had about $30-something between all of us. And she very generously suspended the sentence down to what it was we had and took every penny we had and sent us on our way. And I said, "Ma'am," I said, "we need gasoline." She said, "Well, y'all can pick up some hippies. They'll give you some gasoline." Oh, and she gave us mint julep. Yes, she wouldn't let us leave without sampling some of her nice non-alcoholic mint julep. And as we were leaving, she says, "Y'all come back." They have so many euphemisms in the South that I had to get used to. Like another Southern euphemism is, "Well, bless their heart." You know, like, "Well, he is such a gentleman when he's not drinking," which is most of the time, bless his heart. So, they had some social values down there that were different than the ones here in California. Nazi Germany, World War II, during Hitler's reign. They had social values there that were not shared by everyone in society. In fact, there were Christian families who were hiding Jews at risk of their own life, at the risk of their whole family, and refusing to follow the social order of turning in Jews and others who were not deemed to be fit to live. And so think about that kind of a social value. What if they passed a law saying that you were required to turn in anybody you suspected of living here illegally? There have been some conservative politicians, by golly, who've been trying to pass laws like that. They haven't succeeded, but I know a lot of folks who are here unlawfully, who are here illegally. they work, they pay taxes, they pay into a social security system, and they're not going to get that money out. And there is no law that could force me to go around snitching off my neighbors and friends like that. Now, if somebody was breaking into my neighbor's house, of course I'd report them. It's a whole different deal. So social values change, and they don't always align with our personal values. Okay? There are some people whose social values say, why should I give a turn signal? It's nobody's damn business which way I'm going. Do you know people like that? Yeah, real rebels. Uh-huh. A lot of times you see them driving an old Malibu, you know, and it's painted primer gray. You've seen it, right? You've seen that one on the road, right? Yeah, and the Camaro and the Firebird, yeah.
And others.
And others, yeah.
It's like they've forgotten what that's for.
No.
A lot of people forget what that's for, the life there, but
We have social values that really aid and help our society. And then we've got some that maybe don't. Who knows? And you have to make up your mind on that, because sometimes our social values and our personal values go hand in hand, and sometimes they don't go hand in hand. What are the symbols of social values on our highways? You know, it's like in World War II, prime example, and it went both ways. The Japanese called us cockroaches, and we called them cockroaches. And it was easy to go wipe out a bunch of cockroaches, but very difficult to get people to go out and kill other human beings. And it's like way back in the cave-dwelling days, before there were nations or anything, there were a group of smooth, dark-skinned people who came across a bunch of red-haired people who were covered with hair all over their bodies, and they didn't recognize each other as human at all. And the natural instinct was to get rid of this beast before it gets rid of us. And we've evolved to the point where we do recognize each other as human now. And I hope, maybe against hope, that eventually we'll move beyond war, settle our differences some other way. Social values. 65-mile-an-hour maximum speed limit is based on a social value of respect for life.
That was to save gas.
Yeah. You got to save those dinosaur bones. In fact, traffic laws started out, originally traffic laws were set up to save life. Now we have some pretty funny traffic laws today, you know. I never heard of anybody dying from overtime parking.
Falling asleep in the class and they tell me to get out.
Yeah? That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So I was
in this
wondering,
class, if you fall asleep in class, we don't throw you out, we just give you a dope slap.
that's what I was just, wondering what kind of compensation we all are going to get for everybody else to sick.
Well, if you guys are really, really good, and you don't tell any lies between now and tomorrow, okay? And you don't commit any sins between now and tomorrow. If everybody is very good tonight, we'll let you stay an hour extra tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. I knew it was going to be a hard-ass thing like that.
This mother was cooking waffles for her kids, and she had a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're arguing over who gets the first waffle. And the mother says, "Children, stop and think, what would Jesus do? And the older boy looks at the younger boy and says, "Hey, Kevin, you get to be Jesus."
Yeah.